explain how you get 100 miles to the gallon on diesel and it goes 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. Like what is that? How big's the motor? Like, tell us about the car.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you drove here in, but let's pick your average car or SUV.
Yeah.
Put it in neutral. How hard is it to push it?
Pretty hard.
Pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know it sounds silly, but when you work on cars, if you spend your day pushing around cars, you start thinking about how efficient they are. Look at a car and SUV going down the road, or a semi. How aerodynamic do you think that is?
Not super aerodynamic.
No.
I drive a Silverado, not aerodynamic.
There's nothing about our cars that are remotely efficient at all. So how do you get that? You just make the actual car, not so much the drivetrain. You're not looking for a magic bullet. Everybody wants a magic bullet. You make the car more efficient.
Like the
lower coefficient of drag, somewhat lighter weight where you don't need weight, just less rolling resistance. You make it actual efficient, good design. We don't do that with the automotive industry anymore. And the reason I chose diesel is because people would understand that. Diesel is also a very flexible fuel. We can make biodiesel. You can make diesel effectively out of what's left over from the meatpacking industry, the wine-making industry, agriculture, you name it. And this is fascinating too, because, and I got to get into why I talked about the car, but since that time, I got word back from people kind of more in traditional automotive media and whatnot. No one would talk about it or write about it. And I'm kind of pissed me off, because back when it was in a concept, and I just talked about it a little bit on my YouTube channel, some places would report about it. But why is it when it was just a concept and a YouTuber was trying to do something efficient and like maybe eco-friendly and whatnot, they'd write about it. But then when it actually did what I said it was going to do, they wouldn't.
So it actually gets 100 miles to the gallon?
Yeah, first time out, I didn't even have all the fairings on it. I haven't even tuned it. It was 104.72 miles to the gallon, just driving through the countryside normally with stop signs and turns and such. Just jumping in it without even tuning it more. The first time I took it out, we were just idling and doing hard pulls and everything else. I looked at it, I'm like, we just got like 88 miles to the gallon and we're not even trying.
That's crazy.
Well, and the other thing,
considering gas is pretty, was like $3 or something.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's expensive. It's more expensive in Europe. And like, okay, I have some gas guzzlers for sure. I like V12s and stick shifts and straight pipes.
So tell me about the engine in this vehicle.
It's largely conventional. It's turbo, which is good for diesel because it allows you some flexibility to, cruise more. But if you want to make power, you can crank in the boost and do some things to make it efficient, and I experimented even with some catalytic converters and such that will even be better. So there's nothing crazy about the drivetrain. There's no magic bullet there.
What about
the other thing? I got to point this out.
Yeah.
That drivetrain when I started had 130,000 miles on it. It's no spring chicken.
What was it from? What'd you pull it
Volkswagen.
out of? Volkswagen.
Pre-Dieselgate. Dieselgate's an interesting thing to talk about too. But
what's Dieselgate?
That was the big scandal that Volkswagen went through with allegedly cheating their emissions in tests.
Remember this. Yes.
That was back in 2015, I think.
Right.
That was a big scandal, which is interesting because in looking back on it now, it seems to tie into more with not regulating a car company so much for the betterment of all, but an attack. It's the way it kind of looks like to me.
An attack on Volkswagen.
I would say diesel, because Volkswagen was I don't know about now, but certainly was the best and most efficient. The engine I used was from back in like 2000 when they made it.
Volkswagen.
Yeah, good engine. And it's manual, more efficient that way.
The transmission's manual?
Yeah, manual. Less parasitic losses. It's
really
cheaper to produce, gets better miles to the gallon. And, back in the day, sports cars, if they were manual, would have better 0 to 60 times and such.
No longer true. Correct.
Yeah, no longer true. Our automatics have gotten a lot more interesting and whatnot. But
manual transmission still makes for more efficient driving.
Yeah, because there's less parasitic drag. There's less losses in the drivetrain.
Huh. Interesting. Like meaningfully more efficient?
Well, especially in that time, in the 2000s, probably could be 5 to 7 miles to the gallon on the highway.
Oh, wow.
Maybe only like 3, but it's still a lot. And when you consider millions of cars over years, that's
for sure. Or even your car over years.
And it doesn't all have to just be about like, oh, we have to do this for the sake of the environment. These are costs that hit people's pockets.
Oh, that's the whole point. I wasn't thinking about emissions even.
Yeah.
So Well, that's amazing. Not all sleep aids are made by pharmaceutical companies. You probably heard about 8 Sleep by now. They developed the country's most innovative products for sleep. Almost everybody in our office uses something they make called the pod, and they love it. And there's a reason that professional athletes and lots of other smart people do too. You add the pod to your mattress like a mattress cover, and it helps you get a better night's sleep and fill with vitality at the start of each day, in an intimidating way almost. It's amazing. How does it do it? Well, it uses advanced technology to track your sleep and automatically adjust the temperature of your side of the bed to what's perfect for sleep. And temperature makes all the difference. It's backed by over 600 million hours of data. They've also used those insights to create their new product, Sleep Elixir, to help you get quiet before you go to bed, fall asleep faster, and stay knocked out longer. No grogginess, no weird side effects, just better deep sleep. So if you're ready to take sleep and recovery to the next level, go to 8sleep.com/Tucker to get $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra full refund for 30 days if you don't love it. It works. So, and what about emissions on this vehicle? I'm trying to get to like
in regard to mine or the whole scandal
specifically.
Thing going on. It's the basic stuff that diesel would have. I mean, you've got a pretty serious catalytic converter. You've got the exhaust gas regulation and such, and that. Without getting into overly nitty gritty, diesel does have some things about it that the EPA likes to go after. But it's kind of strange, and I'm curious to see what happens in the future. So I'm sure you saw this. The Supreme Court ruled differently on the Chevron deference.
Of course.
Which I'm really fascinated to see how that changes the nature of the way laws are interpreted.
So the question before the court was, can federal agencies create legislation when the Constitution says, no, Congress creates the laws?
Right. On how it's interpreted.
Right. But for generations, the federal agencies, including EPA, but all of them, from the Department of Education to the Department of Defense, have come out with regulations that have the force of law that no one ever voted for, and that no elected official had a hand in, so it's anti-democratic, right?
That's
the idea.
That's probably the reason why so many friends complain about the ATF. I think they're pretty good at making laws.
Well, the ATF has all kinds of other problems, like shooting innocent people. But yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they create regulations that no one voted on and that no elected official administers. So it's like, as a citizen, I have no recourse. So that's not democracy. That's tyranny.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's the conceptual.
No, exactly right.
Explanation.
Exactly right. And it's not looking for a way around something or a loophole, but like, what is right? Like, what are we actually doing here? Where are we going?
Also, if you want a law, vote on it.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the Congress is they have 2 or 6 years between elections, so they're pretty accountable to voters. And if voters don't like the way they vote, they can turn them out, at least conceivably, right?
One hopes. Yeah.
But the Undersecretary of Douchebaggery is completely beyond the control of any voter. So like that's again tyranny, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that affects things greatly because when you over-regulate things, it just makes it difficult to innovate or go anywhere.
Right.
And the thing of it is, so going back to the car I built, so I mentioned to you, got 104.72 miles to gallon. And I video recorded the whole thing because I want to know, what does this thing actually do?
Yeah.
Because last year was a very important year. It was an election year. One thing that also drove me nuts, so if you look at, the Biden administration and even Gavin Newsom's pushing it, electric vehicle mandates. Like large electric vehicle mandates, not like back to the Clinton era when it was like, 1% to 2% of vehicles sold by certain times need to be electric. No, they're big ones. And I had a huge problem with, Biden's administration doing that because I'm like, this destroys innovation. And the other thing you go into, and I don't want to beat up on electric because it has its purpose in places. I think all kinds of drivetrains and energy do. And I don't mean that as just like political BS rhetoric. I mean that genuinely, but it's not a Band-Aid fix.
Also, how are we going to charge them?
Our grid? Yeah, how? I tell you this. So I did some math with all this. Let me tell you this. So that the next day, I'm coming right back to this point on the math. The next day after I did the initial mile per gallon testing on my car, I did 0 to 60 times with it. So I put accelerometers and GPS in this car, also my 93 Dodge Viper RT10, C7 Corvette Grand Sport, and my neighbor's Tesla Model 3 rear-wheel drive with the full charge. My car, that got 104 miles a gallon, beat the Dodge Viper by 0.2 of a second and exactly matched the Corvette Grand Sport and the Tesla.
Damn.
That's without like computerized traction control. That's me just driving it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.